All right, hey guys. Well, this week we are working with oil pastels, and you will be creating an oil pastel bird. Oh, I'm gonna take that out of the packaging. So yes, you will be creating an oil pastel bird. We are going to be doing, it's kind of an impressionistic bird. Um, you can make things pretty realistic with oil pastels. It's just difficult. So I do not expect beginners such as yourselves to be able to do anything in super hyper realistic detail with oil pastels, because it's just not that's not a realistic expectation for a teacher to have when you guys are starting out. So impressionistic birds is what we're doing today. Okay, I did this one a while back. Really what I'm looking for in this assignment is color. I want thick color applied. I want it nice and creamy. You'll understand what I'm talking about once you start playing around with oil pastels when I talk about creamy. So these are the oil pastels that we will be using. They are just from Hobby Lobby. They're just Master's Touch oil pastels, a set of 24. You'll each get a set to use, but you can use anything else if you have them at home. I have this set of Pentel Arts oil pastels. They're good. And I also have a set of really nice oil pastels. They're not quite professional brand, but they are definitely a step up. Okay, these are Paul Rubens. It's a set of 48. They're actually pretty cheap on Amazon. They're about $25 if you bought this set, and they are night and day difference. But for all we need, the Master's Touch will be fine. So if you find that you love oil pastel, get yourself some of these. They're pretty great. All right, so oil pastels. They are kind of like oil paint in a stick. They really don't ever dry fully. Oil paints, they'll eventually dry. Like, it'll take months and months and months, but eventually they'll dry. Oil pastels just always seem to have just a little bit of something there. I did this one in a year ago, and I can still pick up some yellow. So they really just don't ever set up. And you'll usually always have a little bit of residue on the back side of a page that is on it, or so they never really set up. I put them I put this assignment in that little plastic, and it kind of like distorted the plastic. So yeah, it's just a medium that won't dry, so don't expect it to dry. If you like what you do, you can put it in a frame with glass on it, and then you'd be fine. So just keep that in mind. All right, so we are going to be working on pastel paper today. Pastel paper is a toothier paper. You can probably kind of see it. You can see where I didn't quite push it in enough. You can kind of see the tooth of the paper, as opposed to this paper. I hope that zooms in. It's very smooth, and so you can't see really any tooth. You can't see, there's not much tooth there. Pastels will work on normal paper. If you really had to, you could do your project in your sketchbook. I did a full hour just to try it out, and it will work. It doesn't get creamy. It doesn't lay down nice and thick how it should. So it is doable in the sketchbook, but it is not preferred. It's not the best place. It just gets kind of smudgy, and it just doesn't look I mean, this is the Master's Touch, which you'll be using, and it's really kind of streaky. It just doesn't smooth out nice. So once you work on pastel paper, you'll understand what I'm talking about. All right, so in class, we will have done, or we are going to do, whichever, if you're watching this before or after class, we're going to do apple, so you can kind of get a feel for the crayons. And there are some different ways to blend. So there is our trusty blending stump, which is just, this actually is probably one of the better methods. This is, this one right here is using the blending stump. I did this little guy, but this is too soft. So this doesn't work. This just kind of pushes it around on the paper and it just gets clumpy and gross. So that's a no-go. I tried with a rubber pencil eraser and that was a no-go. I found these at Hobby Lobby. I'm not 100% sure what they are. They're a hard rubber and they work fantastic. Okay, so that was this one. Blends it really well. So that one's good. I tried a Q-tip and that was a no-go. Nope, don't use it. It's worthless. And then I used my finger, which was this one, and that was fantastic. The reason your finger works so well is because the heat of your finger kind of softens the oil. And so then it's able to get into the paper really well. So that's what I have for that. Yeah, and this one was done on, this is slick paper. This is just construction paper. And it works okay, but you can kind of see the streaky, clumpy. But it's not the end of the world. So if this is what you have, that's what you have. But again, pastel paper is probably the best paper. The pastel paper I am bringing for you to class has some different colors in it. So we have cream, we have brown, we have blue, we have green. So you'll each get to choose, a color. I won't have, there's only 4 of each paper, so not everybody can have blue. But we'll have different colors. So the advantage to that is if you do have some seepage, you can see the background. It's not just stark white. You're not just seeing a stark white background. So it's kind of muted, it's toned down. It still looks really nice, even if you miss some spots. So that's why we're doing that. All right, have I explained everything enough? I think so. All right, well, I picked green paper for today. And I picked this bird. So it's not a very colorful bird, but I do he's got a very nice red helmet. He's got red eyeball, which I think is kind of curious. And, he's kind of got a warm little belly. So, and then we need to discuss black. Black is the kind of an invasive color. So black is always last. If you know nothing about oil pastel, black is last, because you will make a terrible mess out of your project if you try to put black in too early. Because oil pastels is a lot of rubbing with your fingers, and fingers are big, and so they're not super accurate, which is why this little thing is pretty cool, because it gets right up to the edge and you don't have to worry about it. So black is last. Always remember that. So I'm going to do this guy, and I'm just going to try and make him as colorful as I can because he's kind of cute. My mom had a bunch of these, so I grabbed them. You can find bird pictures anywhere. You can find them online. You can find them in magazines. You can take a picture of a bird in your yard. Yeah, wherever you find a picture, grab it and draw it. All right, and I think that's all I needed to talk about. So give me a second and we will get started working on our bird. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is sketch in my bird. Now I want my oil pastel to fill my page, but we're going to do something a little different. We're not going to go edge to edge. We're going to do kind of a rough border. Let me see. Okay, so this one does not go all the way to the edges. It has kind of its own a frame, and it's just kind of an organic raw edge. So that's what we're doing today. I didn't leave much at the bottom. I wish I would have left a little bit more, so I'm going to try and remember to do that today. But kind of once you start get going, it's easy to forget. So we are doing an irregular border. Another thing we are going to do is we are going to sketch in with a light gray. This, we're not going to use pencil. Pencil will smudge terribly. So we're sketching everything in with this light gray. And that's just what we're going to do. It's easy to fix. If you make a mistake, it's not really a big deal. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start and get my my branch in here. All right, so he's kind of sitting right next to it. He's kind of looking to the side. Okay. He's got little feet here that we'll add in. But we don't have to worry about that quite yet. Okay, let's see. So his beak, he's got a nice big beak. And it kind of comes down like that. And he has this big eye. Oops, that's not in the right spot. Alright, and I'm going to kind of rough in his hood here. So he's got a nice little thing going on here. Okay, doesn't have to be perfect. And with this gray, a lot of it will disappear. Actually, it'll disappear. Let's see. Okay, then we have this wing. That kind of comes. So this is all my black and white. So this actually wing I am gonna do probably last. It's got kind of this. It looks like a dirty belly, but I don't think it is. I think it's just. Okay. And we can't erase pastel, so, but we can go over it with other colors. So don't worry about, you know, if you did something that you're not crazy about. This is completely opaque, and it will cover. If you take a look at this, like I did white over pink. Now we are using the Master's Touch, so it's not quite as good. I treated myself to some really fancy ones. These are Sennelier, and they're like $3 a piece. So I have 2 of them, and I have 2 blacks. But actually, the Paul Rubens white was the best. So Pentel's white, not so great. I was a little surprised, but it's okay for, say, dotting the eye. You can see that. If you need to put a dot in the eye for a highlight, you know, I did a highlight in that eye. It works for that if you're putting on a nice big gob of it, but to like draw over the color, it didn't work so great. But this is opaque, and so you can draw over, and you can draw over with lighter color, and it covers well. So don't feel like you have to be perfect the first time. It's funny because every medium's different. Now you can't do this with watercolor. Like, you have to, you know, think about the highlights beforehand. In acrylic paint, you can do the light afterwards, but not, you know. So it's just every medium is different, and you just have to play around and find ones you like. All right, well, my bird, there's a whole lot of white in him, but I don't think I'm going to start with white. I think I'm going to start with, I suppose I better sketch in some of this snow too, huh? I really like that moss. I don't know if I'll put moss on there or not. We'll see. So I'm going to start getting in some of this color. Now I'm moving with the shape of the bird because it just, even though it's impressionistic, you still want it to be, you don't want to, you know, totally mess up the eye. The eye will still recognize it as how it's moving. All right, and so I'm just going to start blocking in some of this color. I will go in for more detail later. And you have 24 colors, so it's a good number of colors. It should meet most of your needs. I don't like that orange as much as I like that scarlet, so. And if you go outside the edge a little bit, we are going to do, I'm going to do a background like this so I can go right up to the edge and I can cover up any mistakes. Okay, so this is my first layer. I'm just pushing this first bit of color into the tooth of the paper. And you can use your finger, you can use the tools, you can use a blending stump. Even though this blending stump is pink, if I kind of wipe it off, I can still get in here and move that color around. Now there's a lot more white in there, and I'll come back later and get that in. Again, this is mostly black, so I don't really want to touch that because that will mess with a lot coming up. But I'm going to get the start of this, the first layer of this. So this is pushing it into the tooth. Another thing with oil pastel paper, you can layer a lot more with pastel paper than you can with, say like your sketchbook paper or copy paper. It just, that tooth, you can build up a lot more. Okay, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to, after I get this first layer, then I'll start adding the dimension. Don't forget the dimensional layer, because that's really flat. And if I didn't go in and put some shadows in there and highlights, then it's just going to be flat. And we really want dimension. All right, and he happens to have a red eye. And I call this a he. Does everybody know why? Because the male birds are the colorful birds. The females are pretty dull and a little boring looking. So I accidentally collapsed the tip of this. It should be pointy like that. You want to use it on its side so you don't collapse it. You can still use it, but having that nice point is nicer than having a blunt, stumpy tip. All right, so there's actually quite a bit of gray in here, so gray is probably going to be my base for this guy. Now, these aren't crayons, so you do want a good build up. Okay, with your finger, you do have to watch that you don't have other colors on your finger. That can kind of cause some smudging. And you got to kind of hold the paper because you can kind of get carried away, and then all of a sudden you've got a big crease and whole corner wrinkled up. Your fingers will get sore. I do have these little things. It just didn't work all that nice. I mean, it works. So, it's an option. I'll send them home with you if you guys use them. Great. If not, just return it and along with your pastels, and no big deal. Okay, so even though I've got pink on this, I can still, oops, I didn't wipe it off. Wipe it off first. Paper towel, make sure you have a paper towel handy. You'll need it for your fingers, you'll need it for your stump. All right, and I'm gonna kind of make this a little more brown than it is, just because it's just a lot of gray. So we're gonna make this a little more brown. Again, we want to leave that rough edge. Circular motion seems to get it in the tooth the best because it's going in all directions. All right, so do a little bit gray around here. All right, I'm going to work on my background. So I need to pick a color that'll look really nice with this background. I'm going to go with this one. I think that might make that head pop a bit. No. I think this is it. This is the one. All right, so I'm going to go right up around my gray. I'm pushing it into that tooth. All right, so I'm going to go right up around the edge. You kind of have to rotate it so you have an edge or a point. You kind of start out and work your way towards it so you don't go too far, because these aren't really precise, so you're not going to be able to see your edge really well. Let's see. And the thicker you put it down, the easier it is to move. You know, if you try to just do a little teeny bit and cover it in, it's going to look dry like that. We want creamy. And you can see that. You put a nice layer down, and it's creamy. It's got movement. Again, your fingers might hurt at the end of this. We'll have to take a break every once in a while. This is not a quick project. This should take you probably closer to an hour, depending on how long it takes you to draw the bird. That would probably be, yeah. So this isn't a quick medium. You can hear everything on my desk rolling. All right, so that edge looks really nice. I like the kind of raw edge like that. We don't get to do that very often, so. This is actually a fingertip for hot gluing. So you put one on all your fingers if you're working with hot glue. So these are really handy in more ways than one. And you have to be careful. Okay, so you can kind of see I've been touching. Yeah, can't touch with dirty fingers. So keep your eye out. Keep your fingers clean. Always just have a rag to wipe it off. Handy. Otherwise you're going to be a mess. Now I am covering that up, so it will be fine. But if that was on my finished part, I wouldn't be very happy. And I'm working in little sections because even though it doesn't dry, it does kind of set up in a way. So, and then just it still moves, but it's harder to move. I'm trying to get right into those little corners and right up to my edges. It's pretty nice actually for the big space. And can't forget this down here. And you could take the edge, but that kind of takes away from the organicness of it. So, all right, let me take a little break. All right, so now that I got that done, I am going to start on with some white. And make sure you clean it off before you get started. We don't want too much extra color on there, so make sure you have your paper towel handy. All right, so I am just going to start adding in some of this white. I'm going to go over this gray, and hopefully I'm able to create some depth with that. I am going to go in the direction of the feathers. All right, and I need... All right, so another thing, if you're going to create some like shadow areas, with oil pastels, you can't just add more color to make it darker. It's just the color it is. You can't create depth with the same color. So we do need to add in some shadows. So I'm just going to take a dark brown and add in some of those shadows, kind of smooth them in. Again, I am moving in the direction of the feather movement, just to create some of that. And then I'm just taking my smudging tool. Now I am this is the next day, so I can still move the oil pastel from yesterday. So don't think you need to do this all in one sitting. All right. All right, I'm gonna do this now. Yeah, doing quite a bit of pressure for the snow. And a different motion. Okay. All right. All right, here's black. All right. Let's see if I can get this black around his eye. Wish me luck. All right, so just kind of got some on there, and then I'm going to use a tool of some sort to kind of smooth it out. All right, and then I'm going to get black on the inside. So take your time, put a little bit down, and then spread it with. Boy, they just turn it into life when you put the eyeball in, doesn't it? All right. We're getting there. All right, I'm going to do, again, impressionistic, so we can get away with not being perfect. You kind of see the I should have done the white first. All right, and then I'm going to do some. And I'm going to go over. All right. Now I gotta get some feet in there, and then we'll be done. Oops, sorry. All right. Well, here we are. I think this is a pretty good place to stop. The last layer of feathers I didn't blend in. I just kind of left them. I just took the oil pastel and just made the, the direction of the feathers, and I'm just going to leave those kind of raw and not blended. I think that just kind of adds the look to, adds the texture of the feather a little bit better. But that's it, guys. I really hope you enjoy this one. I think this oil pastels are tough, but they can be a lot of fun, and they are messy, but give them a shot. We're going to be in oil pastels for a couple weeks, actually 3 weeks. So I hope you have fun, and I can't wait to see what you turn in. See you soon.